The Three Foolish Princesses. Once upon a time, in the lush and thriving kingdom of Ojudioba, there were three princesses, Zuri, Jalea, and Ife. Each of these royal sisters was known far and wide, not for their wisdom or courage, but for their peculiar blend of naivety and folly that often led them into absurd situations. The three princesses. Zuri, the eldest, was as curious as a squirrel and had a penchant for mischief, but she rarely thought of the consequences. Jalea, the middle child, was known for her big ideas, although they usually only made sense to her. Ife, the youngest, was sweet-natured and trusting to a fault, believing everything she heard, no matter how impossible it sounded. Despite their lack of sense, the three princesses shared a strong bond, and each loved the other two dearly. Their father, King Bao, often worried about their silly escapades, but he hoped that one day they would learn to temper their foolishness with wisdom. One morning, a traveling merchant arrived in the kingdom and whispered tales of an enchanted river said to flow with waters as golden as the morning sun. The merchant claimed that anyone who drank from the river would gain wisdom beyond measure. The three princesses, overhearing this, were immediately enchanted by the idea. "Oh, think of the things we could accomplish with that wisdom," Zuri exclaimed. "We could solve all of the kingdom's problems," said Jalea excitedly, as she imagined herself as the world's most intelligent princess. "Yes, everyone will respect us," Ife added, with stars in her eyes. They decided at once to embark on a journey to find the river, convinced that this was the key to all their dreams. However, they neglected to consider that they had no map, no supplies, and no idea where this enchanted river might lie. Their first stop was the Market of Illusions, where mysterious merchants sold strange and magical items. The princesses were instantly dazzled by the sights and sounds, and a sly trader convinced them to buy wisdom bracelets for an absurd price, saying they would grant insight and clarity. Thinking they were now the wisest in the land, Zuri attempted to negotiate with another merchant for a magic carpet to fly to the river. However, instead of haggling, she offered all of their remaining gold as she believed it was a wise investment. By evening, the princesses realized they'd been tricked. The bracelets were mere metal, the merchant was gone, and their money was lost. Jalea was outraged. "But I thought we were wise now," she cried. They decided to continue, hoping the enchanted river would grant them the wisdom they sought. As night fell, they wandered into the Forest of Echoes, a mysterious place where every sound was amplified and repeated. The princesses were soon startled by strange voices that seemed to call their names. Ife, being overly trusting, thought they were being summoned by friendly forest spirits. Following the voices deeper into the woods, they soon found themselves lost. Zuri, in a moment of panic, shouted, "Where are we?" Only for the forest to echo back in a haunting chorus, "Where are we? Where are we?" Jalea declared they were cursed, and Ife began to cry, convinced they would be stuck in the forest forever. Just as despair was setting in, a wise old woman appeared. She laughed softly, shaking her head at their plight. "The Forest of Echoes reflects your own confusion back at you," she explained. "If you remain calm and walk quietly, it will lead you out." The princesses, humbled, followed her advice and soon found their way back to the path. They thanked the old woman, who smiled mysteriously and vanished as quickly as she had appeared. As they traveled on, the princesses slowly began to realize that wisdom wasn't something they could simply purchase or drink from a river. Each trial they faced made them question their impulsive choices and see the importance of thoughtfulness and patience. Yet, despite their growing awareness, the princesses' journey was far from over. They encountered countless other challenges: a mischievous djinn who challenged them to riddles, a wise tortoise who spoke in parables, and a mirror that showed them the consequences of their foolish actions. Each encounter added a new layer to their understanding, yet their folly always managed to lead them to fresh mishaps. Along the way, they continued to meet strange creatures, solve riddles, and learn lessons that guide them closer to wisdom, but never quite close enough to end their journey. Perhaps one day they may find that river, but for now their journey continues. As the three princesses journeyed deeper into lands unknown, they encountered the Great Plains of Mirrors, a vast, shimmering desert where the ground reflected the sky in a perfect illusion. They had been warned by the villagers not to cross the plains, but curiosity overtook caution. The mirrors in the desert weren't just ordinary reflections. They showed not what was, but what each person secretly wished to see. Zuri, Jalea, and Ife were mesmerized as they saw grand, exaggerated images of themselves in the mirrors. Zuri saw herself as the kingdom's most daring explorer, Jalea as the wisest ruler, and Ife as beloved by all. Enthralled, they wandered deeper, following their reflections, each convinced she was close to reaching her heart's desire. Hours turned to days, and the princesses became lost, each chasing her own dream. Eventually, exhaustion and hunger made them realize they were going in circles, endlessly chasing illusions. Finally, Jalea sat down and sighed. "I thought we were wise enough not to fall for simple tricks by now." Ife, close to tears, nodded. "I keep thinking the next reflection is real, but maybe none of it is. Maybe I'm just a foolish princess." Then, unexpectedly, Zuri, usually the impulsive one, had a flash of clarity. Maybe that's the lesson of the mirrors. They show us what we want to see, not what's real. We can't just keep chasing after things that aren't really there. With this new insight, they turned their backs on the illusions and walked without looking back. Soon, the mirages faded, and they found themselves at the edge of the desert. There, waiting for them, was a man clad in ancient robes, his face partially hidden beneath a dark hood. He was Cato the Seeker, a wise sage known throughout the land as the protector of lost travelers. Cato smiled at the weary princesses. "You have passed the first test. But if you seek true wisdom, you must face another challenge." The princesses groaned, their feet sore and their stomachs empty. But Zuri, as always, couldn't resist a challenge. "What is it, wise one?" she asked, puffing herself up. Cato produced a small clay jar and handed it to Ife. "This jar contains a grain of wisdom," he said. "You must decide together what to do with it. Each choice will lead you down a different path." They stared at the tiny grain of wisdom, barely visible in the jar. It was so small that it looked almost like an ordinary pebble. Jalea, her ambition surging, was the first to speak. "We should plant it. Surely it will grow into a tree of knowledge, and we'll become the wisest rulers of all." Zuri, ever the adventurer, disagreed. "No, we should keep it for emergencies. Wisdom like this could save us from danger." But Ife, the gentle-hearted one, had a different thought. "What if we give it to someone who needs it more than we do?" The princesses debated for hours. Finally, they agreed to give the grain to an elderly woman they met on the edge of the desert, who had been struggling to understand her sickly son's illness. Grateful, the old woman promised them her deepest blessing and went on her way, wiser than she'd been.
The moment the grain left their hands, Cato reappeared, beaming with pride. "You have chosen well," he said. "By giving wisdom away, you have learned something profound. True wisdom grows the more it is shared." The princesses felt a surge of understanding within them, a feeling of warmth and strength they had never felt before. It wasn't the ultimate wisdom they had sought, but it was a small step. With Cato's blessing, the three princesses continued their journey, understanding now that wisdom wasn't found in shortcuts, illusions, or magical rivers. The greatest wisdom lay in small acts of kindness, in learning from mistakes, and in the strength of their bond as sisters. Their journey through the lands continued, each step a new lesson, each encounter a new teacher. They met many others along the way. Villagers in need, mischievous spirits, wise animals, and travelers who had their own lessons to share. And each person they helped, each challenge they overcame, added another layer to their understanding. Yet the princesses never fully abandoned their quest for the enchanted river. It became a symbol of growth rather than a destination. They still dreamed of finding it, knowing that if they ever did, it would be as much a part of their story as the adventures they had along the way. As Zuri, Jalea, and Ife ventured onward, they reached a village nestled at the edge of the Talking Hills, where legend said the land itself held ancient wisdom. Intrigued, they decided to spend the night, hoping to discover the secrets of these hills. They were greeted warmly by the villagers, who were eager to tell the princesses about their unique home. The villagers told the princesses that each hill had its own personality and only spoke to those who asked questions with a pure heart. The sisters laughed, each thinking they'd surely have no trouble winning over the hills. But the village elder warned them, "The hills reveal only what is necessary. Often, they show us what we don't want to see, and they leave us with more questions than answers." Undeterred, the princesses set off the next morning, each choosing a different hill to consult. Zuri and the Hill of Courage. Zuri, with her fearless spirit, climbed the Hill of Courage, where she was told a daring soul would hear its voice. Reaching the top, she called out, "Tell me, O wise hill, how can I become the greatest adventurer in the kingdom?" The hill rumbled and laughed, a deep, echoing sound. "Oh Zuri," it replied, "to be a great adventurer, you must learn to understand fear. True courage is not about never being afraid. It's about knowing when to act despite your fear." Zuri, who had always thought of herself as brave, was taken aback. She realized that perhaps, in her haste to prove her bravery, she often ignored her own doubts and the wise warnings of others. Reflecting on this, she descended, feeling humbled but grateful for the lesson. Meanwhile, Jalea approached the Hill of Wisdom, determined to prove her intellectual might. She sat at its peak and proudly declared, "O wise hill, tell me how to become the smartest princess in all the lands." The hill's voice was gentle but firm. "Jalea," it replied, "wisdom is not about knowing all things but understanding that knowledge is endless. Wisdom begins with humility, with knowing that you do not know." Jalea sat in silence, feeling her pride prickled. She'd always thought herself clever, but the hill's words made her realize that her eagerness to know everything sometimes blinded her to the simple truths around her. She climbed down, her mind a little quieter, her heart a little wiser. Finally, Ife chose the Hill of Compassion, drawn by its gentle nature. Sitting quietly at the top, she whispered, "Please, wise hill, show me how to help others more than I already do." The hill's voice was soft, like a whispering breeze. "Ife," it said, "true compassion is not just giving. It is understanding. It is seeing into the hearts of others, even those who seem unworthy, and meeting them where they are." Ife felt a warmth in her heart as she realized that compassion wasn't only about kindness, it was about empathy. Sometimes, in her desire to help, she hadn't considered what people truly needed. She returned to her sisters with a newfound resolve to see others more deeply. As the three sisters gathered at the base of the hills, they shared their stories and newfound insights. Though each had asked a different question, they realized that all their lessons pointed to a deeper understanding of themselves and their purpose. They thanked the hills, their voices echoing across the landscape in gratitude. But just as they were preparing to leave, the village elder appeared. In her hands, she held a delicate woven tapestry that shimmered in the morning light. "The hills have seen your hearts," she said with a smile. "They leave you with this." The tapestry depicted their journey: the market of illusions, the forest of echoes, the plains of mirrors, and the talking hills, each symbol intricately woven in golden thread. At the center was the image of three hands held together, symbolizing the bond of their sisterhood. "This tapestry will grow with you, reflecting the lessons you gather along your path," the elder explained. "It is your map, but not to any place in particular. It will help you find wisdom in the journey itself." With the tapestry in hand, the princesses set off once more. They traveled to new kingdoms, distant deserts, and mysterious forests, where they continued to make foolish blunders, meet curious characters, and learn lessons that deepened their understanding of themselves and the world. Each time they found themselves lost, they would consult the tapestry, which seemed to shimmer and change with new patterns, guiding them in subtle ways. Sometimes it showed them the way forward. Other times it reminded them to look back and reflect. And in every twist and turn, they grew closer as sisters, supporting one another and celebrating each other's growth. For Zuri, Jalea, and Ife, wisdom became not a destination but a lifelong journey. They learned that each person they met, each mistake they made, and each act of kindness they offered was a step toward the true wisdom they sought. And so, the three princesses continued their quest, their story retold in countless villages and kingdoms, inspiring others to seek their own paths of wisdom. In the end, perhaps the true enchantment lay not in rivers or hills, but in the endless journey itself. A journey that, even now, continues on, somewhere in the heart of every seeker who dares to listen and learn. And so, the tale of Zuri, Jalea, and Ife continued, a tale passed down through generations, teaching that wisdom is not something to be captured or held, but something lived, shared, and earned, one lesson at a time. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel, The Folktale Queen. Like, comment, and turn on your notifications so that you won't miss out on any of our videos. Thank you.